So let's talk about resumes. I know, applause, right? So I want to just start by saying, I say this at the beginning of every workshop, hiring, okay? Hiring is arbitrary and it is discriminatory. Hiring is arbitrary and it is discriminatory. So what that ultimately means is that you may be the best at what you do. You still need to out interview everyone that you're interviewing against and also get an interview. And what I have learned in my 8 years of doing this work as a career person is the best way to get an interview is to network your way into an interview. And we network our way into interviews by doing what's called informational interviews, where you go and find people who have job skills, experiences, doing the things you want to do, and you set up meetings with them to learn and ask questions about them, to collect data for your job search, as well as charming them into wanting to help you in the future, okay? Through this process, these people that you network with will then tell you about job opportunities, which they want you to apply for. And this is when the tools that we'll be talking about today, the resume and the cover letter, having them ready and prepared to strongly present will come in handy, okay? So my invitation to you right now is to start doing what's called informational interviews, targeting people who have job skills, experience, who work at companies or industries or departments you want to learn more about, and ask them to, if they'd be willing to connect with you, to ask questions about what they do, how they do it, and why they do it in order for you to learn, as well as to charm them into wanting to help you in the future, okay? If you want to learn more about what an informational interview is, you can talk to Marissa, as Marissa and I have discussed this in great detail, as well as talking to Ms. Kelly Armstrong, because she is also very well experienced in the the art of the informational interview. So now we're here talking about resumes because your informational interview contact has told you, Theo, there's this really great job and I want you to apply for it. Send me your resume and cover letter. And then you start freaking out because, oh man, I've got to create this arbitrary lame series of documents, resumes and cover letters, which explain nothing really truly about who I am and what I'm capable of doing. But because of this archaic system that we have, I have to play this game. So just to start, by like thumbs up or an applause, how many people like writing resumes and cover letters? Yeah, that's what I thought. Nobody, exactly. Even I, in general, don't like writing resumes and cover letters, even though I will say I've learned to try to make them fun and easy, but I wouldn't say that I enjoy it. So this is how we're going to talk about resumes. I invite you to imagine your resume as if it is a timeshare brochure. For those of you who are unfamiliar with timeshare, timeshare is like, Hannah, you give me $1,000 every year, and Laura and Theo and Kathleen and Marissa and Cameron, and myself, Aria, are going to put $1,000 into this pot. And with this $7,000, each one of us will be able to get a week in a hotel somewhere, anytime we want, not at the same time, at separate times. So you get these timeshare brochures in the mail. And in them, they have pictures of palm trees and hammocks and jacuzzis and oceanfront and just all these wonderful things that make it alluring. There is nothing about how much it costs. And there are phone numbers and emails for you to utilize to connect with people. So they have created this marketing document that is not giving you everything about the timeshare experience. They're giving you just enough to want to call them to learn more. And this is how I invite you to think about the resume when you're building it. You're creating a document that's not giving the employer everything. You're giving them just enough, just a little bit, so that they are intrigued and excited and enticed to want to call you and learn more about you. So that's the overall context. Does anybody have any questions about that before we move on?
Is it like an advertisement campaign?
Yes,
Like you're trying
exactly.
to set?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
As we move through the content, I'm always going to just pause and ask for questions just to make sure you have an opportunity to speak and, you know, create space for y'all. I want to make sure that you're getting what you need, okay? So when people who are looking at resumes open up a document, it's probably one of 50, 60, 100 that they do in a day. And you have approximately 10 seconds or less to impress them with what you have. So we need to use it, and we need to use it effectively. In order to do this, you want to try to customize your resume to fit the job description. And that's I'm sure a lot of you have heard that. And a lot of you feel as if, man, that's so hard to do sometimes, right? Because, you know, if you're like me and you have, you know, been alive for 38 years and you've been working since you were 14, you know, that's 24 years of experience. And you're trying to figure out, oh man, how much of this do I put on here? What is relevant? When you are customizing your resume, there are two elements I want you to think about. The first is overall, imagine that you're creating a dinner party menu. So you're having people over at your house and there's a theme for the dinner party. And maybe this theme is pineapples. So you know that the appetizer needs to go with the cocktails, need to go with the appetizer, need to go with the salad, need to go with the main dish, need to go with the dessert, and need to go with the aperitif, right? So an example of this would look like, okay, if the dinner party theme is pineapples, welcome Bria, nice to see you. If the dinner party theme is pineapples, so you're gonna serve pina coladas, you're gonna serve pineapple salad, you're gonna serve roasted pineapple as an appetizer. Maybe you have roasted pork with pineapple glaze. You have pineapple upside down cake. And then for the aperitif at the very end, you just have pineapple rings, okay? So you're having a common thread throughout this dinner party menu. This is the exact same element I want you to be thinking about when you are building your resume. Ask yourself, what is the common thread in your experiences? And how can you communicate that in a document? The other element I want you to think about when you are building a resume is when you're kind of stuck saying, okay, do I include this piece of information or not? Ask yourself, is this work experience that I'm considering including an exact match? Is it an exact match for the job I'm applying for? If it is an exact match, include it. If it's kind of a stretch, maybe you shouldn't include it. If you ever have questions about that type of thing, you can always connect with me and I'm more than happy to help you with that. Okay? So because you only have 10 seconds to impress people who are looking at resumes, you're trying to use it effectively and customize it to fit the job description, thinking of it as if it's a dinner party menu. So that appetizer and the salad and the meal and the dessert and the drinks, cocktails, all have to go together, reflecting on what is the common thread through this document. And the intention is to create a marketing document that's not giving the reader every little bit of information, You're giving them just a little bit of information to make them want to call you and learn more about you, to make them come up with questions they cannot answer unless they talk to you. By a show of thumbs up, does this make sense to everybody? Thank you, Cameron. Thank you, Hannah, Laura, Theo, Kathleen, Marie Cris. Awesome. And welcome, Marie Cris. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. If I'm not, please tell me how to say it. I would like to know how to say it. And yes, tell me.
It's like Merry Christmas. So
Like
just
Merry Chris. Okay, good. Thank you. I love that. Merry Chris and Bria, if I could also please get your email addresses, if you please chat them to me, that would be really helpful because I want to send all this content to you that we're covering, both images and templates and the stuff I'll be talking about at the end. So whenever you have a moment, please send it in the chat. Awesome. Thank you. Okay. So you've created this marketing document, you've customized it because you know that someone who's reading this is reading a million of these things every day. Now, I want to talk about format. I have observed in my analysis of over 1,000 resumes in the span of 8 years that there is no format that gets you an interview. There is no format that gets an interview. What gets a person an interview usually is, do you have the exact experience that they are looking for? Or do you have someone who is recommending you for this job? Okay. So when you're building your resume, here are a couple tips on formatting. And formatting is just the way the actual document looks. The major thing I invite you to remember is consistency is key. So whatever you do on the resume document itself, I invite you just to do it consistently throughout. So what does that mean? That means things like, if the header for work experience is Garibaldi bold 16, make sure that all your headers are Garibaldi bold 16. If the font you are using for the content under each header is Roman 10, make sure all of the font is Roman 10. If you put a period at the end of one accomplishment statement, you want to make sure that you put a period at the end of all accomplishment statements, right? Whatever you do, just keep it consistent. And this is really important because you're demonstrating to the employer you are paying attention to details. And I will be very honest, this type of piece of the resume and cover letter stuff like gets me every time. I am practicing paying close attention to detail. And just do a great job to begin with and start developing this muscle early because it's really hard to develop it later on. So consistency is key. Next, another element of formatting is negative space or white space is reigning supreme. So what that means is, as someone who reads resumes, when I open it up and I see a jabillion words like smushed onto one page, I just die a little bit on the inside. Like, I'm like, no, I don't want to read this, get it away. So you try to space it out. You try to make sure that visually it looks inviting and makes you want to read it. And it doesn't have too many things jammed up in there, right? So white space or negative space reigns supreme. You need to make sure that, going back to emphasizing the attention to detail, there is no spelling and no grammar errors. So I invite you to proofread it, have 2 other people proofread it, send it to me to proofread, and then you proofread everything that we have done, okay? Just to make sure that there are no spelling and no grammar errors. This is very important. By show of thumbs, does everybody feel pretty clear on the elements of formatting on a resume? Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, Marissa. Thank you, Cameron. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Mary Chris. Thank you, Theo. Awesome.
Can I ask you a question?
Of
Could you
course,
put
please.
Could you put pictures in a resume?
Yes, I will be showing examples of I'll show you an example of my resume in a moment, and I will also show you a template that I will be sending in a moment, okay? I promise. Okay, so now let's talk about the actual content inside the resume itself. And I see Kathleen has a question of what programs recommend to create resumes. Honestly, anything that works best for you, anything that will serve you with ease is really open. You're really open to use. So it could be Microsoft Word, it could be InDesign, it could be Illustrator, right? Anything that will allow you to create something, I would just say is totally fair game. Okay, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. I also really recommend Canva.
Canva.
Yeah, I love Canva. That's where my multiple resumes are on.
Cool. Okay. Awesome. More resources. I love it. So now we come to the content in the resume. And there's one thing that I've observed in the resume is that there's like this weird cognitive dissonance going on. The majority of the content in the resume is written in third person without a pronoun. And yet the mind does not, and when we communicate, language is not that way, right? So, for example, when we speak in English, you know, we would say, Mary Chris goes to the store. Mary Chris went to the store. I go to the store. They go to the store. They went to the store, right? On a resume, it would literally just be go to the store or went to the store. So there's like this weird mind game happening when you're sitting down to try to write your content in your resume because it's written in third person without a pronoun. And so what I would invite you to do is to engage in an activity before you sit down to write the resume that's going to energize you and ground you. And I call this feeling that you feel expansive, right? So it's something a little active, not exhausting, and will allow you to focus and be relaxed. So for some people that could be a yoga class, or some people it's going on a hike, or walking your pet cat, or maybe it's swimming, right? Maybe it's a dancing session or a Zumba class. Whatever it is, I invite you to engage in it because it will help you be grounded and focused to sit down and do this soul-sucking work that is writing the resume, okay? And so that part's really, really important. Now we have the three buckets in a resume. We have the career summary, we have the skills, and we have the experience sections. I'm going to start with the easiest one, skills, and then move to career summary, which I think is a little harder, and then we will end with the experience section, which is the most mischievous of all. So for me, my invitation, and remember, everything I'm talking about today is an invitation and my perspective on how to do resumes and cover letters. Perhaps you will meet another career person who'll tell you something completely different. And that's totally okay. This work is not a science. This work is an art form. So I just invite you to think about what can you create in these content documents that's going to make you feel proud and stoked. So then you can submit these to employers with, being completely secure that you have done your best and you presented something strong. Because it's all subjective anyway. With that said, let's talk about skills. I've observed that this area really has a fascination and focus on technical skills. So I invite you and all my clients to just merely list technical skills that you have. So that could be software that you know. So those are things like Adobe InDesign, Photoshop, Illustrator, Canva, MailChimp, Microsoft Word, Office, Microsoft Excel. If you know any of the coding languages, the Google Suite, any of those things, list them in bullet form. And then if you know any if you know any hardware, so it could be like Brother sewing machines, it could be even like pattern making, which is not so much hardware, but it's more of a skill, things like that. And then of course, if you speak any languages besides English, I strongly, strongly encourage you to put that information on your resume because that stuff is really powerful. Your ability to speak multiple languages means you can connect with a broader audience, and employers, savvy employers, are really seeking that out. So for skills, it's literally technical skills, software, hardware, and languages spoken. And then a lot of the interpersonal skills, so things like proactive, on time, leader, team player, things like that. I invite clients and you to put these interpersonal skills in your cover letter. And I invite you to put it in with a story that illuminates for the reader how you have mastery over that interpersonal skill. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to cover letters later on today. Okay, so that's skills. Now shifting over to career summary, a lot of times I've seen resumes with objective. And I think objective is so silly because everyone has the same objective. It's to get a job, to pay the bills so they can live and survive, right? That's everyone's objective. So a career summary, I think, can be a little bit more powerful because someone who's reading it can read it really briefly and it frames for the reader what they're going to see. It gives them a little preview. And I invite clients to consider these elements when they're putting together a career summary. The first being, what are you? So this is the job goal that you're applying for. What can you do for the employer? And what you can do for the employer is literally, what are the results of this job that the employer is looking for? What is the scope of your experience? And so think of scope as what industries have you worked in? And so you might come and say, well, Arya, I've worked in fashion my whole life. And I invite you to remember that fashion is like ice cream. There are a million flavors of ice cream. And each and every one of you has worked in a different flavor of this ice cream that is fashion. So be very specific. And some of you have worked in other industries as well. So it could be healthcare or education or hospitality or nonprofits, things like that. Just be very specific about the scope of your experience. And then lastly, the career summary closes with what differentiates you. And when I say differentiates, I mean, what makes you special? What makes you unique? What makes you fly, right? And a lot of times I find people have a hard time identifying within themselves what makes them special and what makes them unique. And so my invitation to you is to, if this is you, if this applies to you, go to the people that you love and that they love you and just straight up ask them, like, you know, why do you love me? Right? What do you see in me that is special to you that you don't see in others? And you give them the context that you're just trying to learn and understand what is it that makes you special and unique. So then you can take a lot of that data and synthesize it and put it in this career summary. Okay. So again, the career summary is, what are you? What can you do for them? The scope of your experience and what differentiates you. Does anybody have any questions about career summary or skills before we move to the experience section? Okay, wonderful. So now let's talk about the experience section, the most mischievous part of all of the resume. The context behind the resume is, it was created after World War II. Soldiers were coming back from the war. They had acquired a bunch of experience doing production work, factory jobs. And there were tons of factory jobs in America. So all literally they had to do was list what they did in the war, presented it to a factory foreman or a potential employer, and they usually got a job right there on the spot. Fast forward 50, 60, 70 years later, that is no longer a thing. And so I invite clients to thinking about the work they do, not so much in terms of responsibilities. I invite you to think of the work that you do in terms of accomplishments. So the results of your work, the scale of your work, the frequency of your work. And I want to give you an example of what a responsibility statement will sound like versus an accomplishment statement. So a responsibility statement on my resume might sound like this: career counsel city college students. And if you're looking at my resume, you're like, okay, well, I know what you do. And obviously you're applying for a career counselor job, so this is not very helpful, right? If I wanted to, or in order to, transmute it into a responsibility, an accomplishment statement, I would say design, develop, and implement one-on-one job search process program for over 100 arts, media, entertainment students, including cinema, fashion, photography, web, graphic design, and video audio production students annually, resulting in over 200 jobs, internships, and higher education placements. So as you can see, you get a lot more detail in an accomplishment statement than you do a responsibility statement. So the elements of what I find is effective in an accomplishment statement are strong verbs: design, develop, implement, time period, annually, daily, weekly, monthly, data, 100 arts, media, entertainment students. I list the 5 departments: fashion, cinema, photography, web graphic design, video, audio production. And then impact, resulting in 200 data, jobs, internships, and higher education acceptances. And I want to be very clear that what I just did, yes, seemed very easy because I've been doing it for 8 years. I've been practicing a lot. This might create a little mischief for you. And I invite you just to keep practicing. Just as if you were to ask me to sketch an outfit, right? I'd probably draw a stick figure and like some squares, and the stick figure's body would still be in the squares, and you would have no idea what I'm actually drawing. right? Just practice, okay? So this is all the general concepts of resume. Does anyone have any questions about the experience section or any of the topics we've been talking about so far in resume before we move on to look at some examples? Okay. And remember, you're going to get this image, so don't freak out when I stop sharing. All right. So let's take a look at a resume template that I'll be sharing with you. So you got your name, your job you're applying to, which is what you are, phone number, email address, your location if relevant. Not always super relevant. I just find if you think it's relevant, you can include it. Then this is where your career summary would go. What are you? What can you do for your employer? What is the scope of your experience? What differentiates you? So an example would be front-end web designer who leverages extensive marketing background to better shape user experience. So this is what you are, front-end web designer, and what you can do for your employer, better shape user experience. Scope of your experience, experience in Fortune 500 technology and nonprofits. What differentiates you, recognized for collaboration and innovation. Okay. And then in this template, there are places for your portfolio URL. So this is where you create your website and showcase your technical competencies. Your LinkedIn URL, where people can go to your LinkedIn profile and learn a little bit more about you than based on what's on your resume or cover letter. A skills section where, again, you list all your technical skills such as software, hardware, and languages you speak in list form. And remember, interpersonal skills go in a cover letter if appropriate. Then you have the very clear sections of education and certificates. So you include school name or training location name, a degree type, the month year started, the month year ended. And then if you have any volunteer work, I highly encourage you to include that on a resume, because sometimes this is the thing that gets you the interview. If the people reviewing resumes see that, oh, this person also volunteers at the SPCA walking dogs, and the person reading the resume does that, they're going to think, oh, I want to talk to this person and learn more, right? Because in interviews and hiring, it's arbitrary and it's discriminatory. And people who are doing the hiring and requests for interviews are usually interested in talking with people who are similar to themselves. So like, likes, like. And then we have the work experience section. So you have your job title, company location, year started to present, and some steps on how to make a strong accomplishment statement. So starting with a strong action verb, remembering that if you're currently doing the job, it needs to be in present tense. If it's a past job, it's in past tense. I invite you to do your best to include a time period, so daily, weekly, monthly, annually. If there's quantitative data, please insert it, such as numbers. And then results and impact. And results and impact usually comes after this phrase of resulting in ... So an example if I'm a designer, might be design, develop, and implement over 30 pieces of marketing collateral monthly, including flyers, posters, handbills, logos, and email banners, resulting in an increase in brand awareness, event attendance, and sales. So the strong action verb is design, develop, and implement over 30 pieces data of marketing collateral monthly. So that's the time period, the frequency, including flyers, posters, handbills, logos, and email banners. So this is specifically part of responsibilities, resulting in, and this is where impact comes in, right? An increase in brand awareness, event attendance, and sales. So this is a general example of how a resume might look and feel. Does anybody have any questions about this template that I'm going to be sharing with y'all? Does anybody have any questions about any of the content that I've reviewed in this template before I show you my own personal resume?
Could you put like giving back? Could you put like if you like donate things to the to like St. Anthony or something?
I would say that's a great question, Laura. I would say the giving back is more for wherever you specifically give your time and energy. So if, for example, you served food to participants of St. Anthony's food program, then you would include it. I don't think the physical donation stuff is super relevant. Okay. Cool. Any other questions? All right. So now I'm about to show you my resume, and I hope that you don't judge me too hard. Okay, here we go. It's the first time I'm doing this, so wish me luck. Okay, because I wanted to give you a sense of what do specific resumes look like versus these like blanket ones, because sometimes having specific examples is helpful. All right, here's my name. Here's my career summary. A mindful, balanced career services practitioner with excellent program development analysis skills, with intimate understanding of workforce development, who's a believer that work is play. So this is what I am, what I can do, and the industries I've worked in. A strong verbal and written communicator, recognized for producing results, both quantitatively and qualitatively. So this is what I can do. This is my contact information, email address, phone number, my LinkedIn profile, URL, and then my personal website, so people can go to. You want to look at some of the skills that I have: program management development, social impact, Drupal, which is a CRM or a content readiness management program. I don't know if I said that right. Actually, it's not. I'm incorrect. Excuse me. Drupal is a backend website developer like Squarespace, which I actually need to include Squarespace on my resume because I know how to use Squarespace. HTML5, CSS3, Salesforce, Microsoft Office Suite, Google Apps, Spanish, and Farsi, which are languages that I speak, iMovie, GarageBand, Adobe Acrobat, and MailChimp. So I've listed all my technical skills, right? Then you see my education here, university name, degree type, and then what it's in, and the year I graduated. So now let's look at my work experience sections. So you can see where I work, the title, when I started to present. And then I give a quick little headline about what I do. So program development for occupational skills training, portion of workforce development programs, and coaching clients through career searches and transitions using an approach tailored to their needs. That's not necessary. It's just something that's there. If you'd like to have something like that, it usually just encapsulates your work really quickly. So here's an accomplishment statement. Advise over 100 city, college, arts, media, and entertainment, fashion, web graphic design, video, audio production, cinematography students annually regarding career exploration strategies, internship search methods, resume, cover letter writing, interview preparation, and other career-related matters, resulting in over 400 jobs, internships, and higher education acceptances, right? So people have a strong sense of what I do and the scope of what I do. Note that my verb is in present tense because I currently am doing it. And we have deliver targeted programs, services, and information to city college students, including one-on-one counseling, group workshops, and work-based learning opportunities on various job search and career-related matters, resulting in mastery of subject. So this is explaining how I do what I've done in the first above bullet. Then I talk about how I schedule, track, monitor, and analyze career workshop attendance and student evaluation data, resulting in program improvement. I design, develop, and implement career workshop curriculum and content, resulting in excellent finished product. And I see that I have a period here, so I need to delete that period. So you can see every time we look at a resume, there's always room for improvement. Schedule, track, and document all department career sessions, resulting in a reduction in wait time for students. Design, development of an informal mentoring program resulting in appropriate job goal and skill match for students. Plan, execute, and support career development programming initiatives such as recruiting events, internship programs, employer panels, company site visits, and alumni mixers, resulting in an increase in job seeker knowledge, right? So the list goes on like this. Another example is when I was a senior career counseling manager at a local nonprofit, placed over 250 adults and youth in jobs into the college acceptances. So it's a little shorter. I'm spending most of the time fleshing out this page because I know most people are going to want to just see what I've been doing at City College for the last couple of years. And then you can see some of my giving back experiences as a career counselor, a facilitator, design development, over 25 customized workshops on various topics such as pitch, networking, resumes, cover letters, LinkedIn, interviewing, salary negotiations to over 500 plus participants, resulting in mastery of subject. And then I list some clients that I've done this work for. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about my resume? Okay, cool. Does anybody have any questions about any of the resume content we have been talking about for the last 45 minutes or so? Cool.
Would you send a copy of a similar resume out when you
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I will be
thank
sending out a template 100%. I cannot send you my personal resume, but I will be sending out templates. Don't worry about that, I promise. Cool. All right, so no questions about any of the content we've been talking about. What I'd like to do is just a quick round robin of check for understanding. And I'm going to call out your name and just ask you to please unmute yourself and tell me one thing, just one thing that you learned new about resumes from the talk we've been having for the last 40 minutes or so, okay? So when I call your name, please unmute yourself and just tell the studio audience just one new thing that you learned about resumes, okay? And I'd like to start with Cameron, please.
I will say there wasn't really kind of anything new, just because like I'm in a program right now that kind of teaches us soft skills and the hard skills and resume work and cover letters. It's just not, it's more for tech, not fashion. So the things are very similar.
Good, I love it.
Yeah, but
Okay.
it felt good to because I think when I was kind of developing it, I had to realize, okay, I know I need more than one resume because they're two totally different, like professional tech and like fashion professional. So just reiterating the differences or being able to separate the differences between them, but still how they're still unified.
Wonderful, awesome. Thank you for being honest and sincere. I really appreciate that, Cameron.
Thank you.
Okay, Theo, unmute and tell us one thing you learned new.
I would say that there's actually plenty of flexibility when it comes to creating these resumes. I feel like a lot of what tends to be taught in schools at the moment is very structured. It's very like specific, but I think when you really look into the details and make sure that there's this consistency and really focused goal for the resume, there's a lot of like ways you can go about it. I think that's something that I had to kind of unlearn while I made like my new current and up-to-date resume, while still being able to be, since I'm approaching a more creative industry, like, like ways to make it more creative while still hitting the goals, such as like what you were talking about with like goal-based like statements and, like taking out the more unnecessary information and things of that sort. Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you, Theo. Laura, tell us one thing new you learned.
I learned that you write the resume in the third party, but you don't mention pronouns, right? And so that's limiting storytelling. It's very professional when you write.
Awesome, thank you, Laura. Kathleen.
Something that stood out to me was the experience section and how it's for accomplishments and not responsibilities. Because I feel like it's so easy to just list your responsibilities, and also as the person writing the resume, like when you're reading it, you're like, oh, I did this, and then I did this, and then I did this. And it just sounds so like kind of boring. So as you were going over that, I was like, dang, I really gotta edit this part of my resume. So I think I'm gonna do that in the upcoming weeks for sure. And I also read before this, like that it's really good to include like numbers in the accomplishments or in the experience section. So I'm gonna work on that as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Kathleen. Hannah.
One thing that I learned from this class is I didn't know that when it comes to skills can be separated that much, lot of different categories such as technical skills, soft and hard, and even interpersonal skills. So I think it really helps me to think about more deeply which skill I have it depending on the different type of skill.
Wonderful. Thank you, Hannah. Marissa.
I would say that 'cause I learned this all from you before, but I was reminded of like what Kathleen said, kind of focusing more on accomplishments as opposed to just listing responsibilities from a job, which I keep forgetting. So I need to focus on that more.
Very awesome. Thank you, Marissa. And Mary Chris.
For me, it's the making sure that like I don't have an objective section. Like in every resume that I've sent out, I've had an objective section. So I'm going to make sure that I take that out.
Yay, I love it. Thank you all so much for playing the Check for Understanding game with me. I really appreciate it. So that's everything about resumes. I'm going to send all this information over in an email to Kelly, and everyone who's provided me with their email address will be receiving it. And then let's take it's 2:02 now. Let's take a 6-minute break and reconvene at, it's now 2:03. Let's take a 6-minute break and reconvene at 2:09, and we will talk about resumes, okay? So it's 2:03, take a 6-minute break. I invite you to get up and move away from your computer and stretch, and I'll see you at 2:09 to reconvene. So once again, my name is Arya Zarenkelk, Employment Training Specialist 3 at City College of San Francisco, with the honor and pleasure of working with fashion, cinema, photography, visual media design, broadcast electronic media arts students. And we are now going to be talking about cover letters. We're going to be talking about the power of the cover letter. So let's begin. So remember, the most powerful and effective way to find a job opportunity is to network your way there. And when one of your informational interview contacts asks you to apply, you will have to create a resume and a cover letter. And so we're going to be talking about cover letters right now. I invite you to think of the cover letter as another asset along with resumes, LinkedIn profiles, and portfolios to help you get an interview. And I invite you to start thinking about your cover letter as if you were writing a love letter to someone or something that you absolutely love. So on a big picture level, this is a love letter to the hiring manager. And this will be based on research that you've done. Things like informational interviews and online. So online resources are things like the company website, the company LinkedIn page, the company Instagram, the company Twitter, the company Facebook page. right? You use all your powerful skills of creeping, which we've all developed in the age of social media, and also informational interviews. And this is why I always tell clients, I always invite clients straight out the gate to start doing informational interviews now when you first start looking for work. So then you will have things to insert and include in the cover letters when it's time for you to write a cover letter. For example, if someone tells you that they have chocolate covered pistachios in a little bowl in like the center of the team office, you could talk about that in the cover letter. And the person who will be reading your cover letter will be so impressed that you know that, because only someone who's been in that office would know. So things like that are really important. As far as the actual document goes, unless specifically stated otherwise, I always invite clients to provide a separate PDF, right? So when you're doing a cover letter, make sure it's a separate PDF so you can create it in Microsoft Word, you can create it in Canva, and just make sure it's exported as a PDF, unless they request something else. And usually that will show up in the portal in which you're applying or it's going to submit your documents through. And then what I invite clients to consider for their format is business letter. And so traditional business letter has like your address, your name, your address, your contact information. Then it is the name and address of the place or person you're applying for. And then it is the greeting or opening or salutation, dear so-and-so, and then the body, and then a close. So that's a business letter format. And the reason why is just an opportunity to show the employer, the hiring manager, that I guess you have professional writing skills, even though we don't ever really write business letter format letters to people in emails. So this is just another example of an antiquated game that we have to play. So something I just invite you to consider. So now let's talk about the content inside the cover letter. And this is usually what creates a lot of mischief for job seekers. And so what I'm going to do today is try to make it as easy as possible for you to just plug and play, because I know that a lot of you are networking, and when you network, you want to be able to create something really quickly and easily, and be proud of it. So the template I'm going to be talking about here is a little different than the template that I'll be providing you with, because this was created, I think, in 2019, and I've kind of changed my strategy a little bit since then. The elements and the essence are still the same, though, I will probably say. So the first paragraph is what I call the hook. And this needs to be catchy. This needs to be engaging. It needs to be something that's going to make the reader want to read the rest of the letter, right? I find telling a personal story that illuminates for the reader your connection to the product or service or the industry that you're applying for is the most powerful. So for example, I see a lot of clients applying for jobs at the Gap or Old Navy, and I always invite them to talk about the first time they went into a Gap or an Old Navy and what they bought, how it made them feel, why did they buy it, why did they, choose that, things like that. And that personal story is going to make you immediately stand out from other people who are applying. Because in this cover letter, you're kind of stroking the ego of the company at large. So you want to make sure that you just tell your story, right? And it's very similar to a love letter. A love letter starts out really strong and usually talks about the first time, the writer of the love letter had an interaction with the addressee or the recipient. And of course, you don't want to be creepy, because then the love letter loses its power. But the intention is to tell a wonderful, positive story about your first interaction with the product or service provided by the company you're applying for. Then you end paragraph 1 by saying, this is why I'm excited to apply for a blank position at blank company, right? Then, excuse me, paragraph 2 is why you love this company. And literally, paragraphs 2 will open with, I love blank. Insert the name of the company. And then you need to have at least 3 reasons, very specific and clear and unique reasons why you love this company. So you'd say, I love blank. And then you say, I love, and then insert reason 1, period. I love, insert reason 2, period. I even love, and then insert reason 3, period. Done. That's paragraph 2. And for the record, when I say paragraph, what I mean is 2, 3, 4 sentences. Doesn't have to be very long. Just keep that in mind. Sometimes when we hear the word paragraph, we freak out and think it needs to be this really long thing, and it doesn't. And I would say that paragraph 1 and paragraph 2 are usually the hardest and most unique paragraphs to write in the cover letter, and will be different every time, because your personal connection to a product or service will be different for every company you apply to, and the reasons why you love a specific company will be different each time you apply to one. So now we move to paragraph 3. And paragraph 3 is pretty simple. You are basically restating 3 bullet points in the job description in your own words. So paragraph 3 will open with, I can see by my research you are looking for someone who, and then you can literally just do a colon or a semicolon, I can't remember which one, and then a bullet, and then something from the job description in your own words, another thing from the job description in your own words, another thing in the job description in your own words. And it's important to do this because you don't want to just copy and paste things in the job description. You want to make sure you're putting in your own words and demonstrating to the employer that you are doing the work. Then paragraph 4 explains very explicitly through story how you fulfill 3 of those needs that you listed in paragraph 3. And paragraph 4 opens with, I am this person, period. And then you start telling quick stories. So you would say, while working as a blank job title at blank company, and then you insert a quick story that makes it clear for the reader that you have done something that you refer to in paragraph 3. Then the next sentence might be, in addition, while working for blank company as a blank job title, second story. That matches with another bullet point in paragraph 3. The final sentence in paragraph 4 is, lastly, as a blank job title for blank company, and then your final story. That matches with the bullet description, the bullet point that you refer to from the job description in paragraph 3. That's the end of paragraph 4. Then the last paragraph is literally, I would love to bring the skills, experience, and mindset to blank position at blank company. Thank you so much for considering my application. If you have any questions, please let me know. Sincerely, and then your name. So what you'll see if you start applying for the same types of jobs over and over again is that paragraph 3 and paragraph 4 will pretty much remain the same. Because a lot of times, if, for example, you're looking for merchandising positions, the job descriptions are pretty much the same. And so your language can match the job description. That's not that big of a deal. And then the stories or the skill set and experience and mindset that you'll be referring to in paragraph 4 will match those in paragraph 3. So that stuff will be the same, usually. It's literally paragraph 1, your personal story that connects to the product or service provided. And paragraph 2, why you love this company, that are going to be a little different. And those are fun. Those are easy things to sit and think about. And that's why I always invite clients to apply for jobs or seek out opportunities in places that they already love and they already have a personal connection with, because it will make this process easier. In this cover letter, you're basically communicating why you love this company and why you want to work here. In a job interview, someone's going to say, why do you want to work at blank company? And the more personal and specific the story is, the more effective it's going to be. Does anybody have any questions about cover letters in general? Okay.
I
Awesome.
do. Does
Yeah.
it have to be? Does it have to be perfect? If you get the hook, I understand the hook and I understand why I love this company and the 3 reasons why you should listen to me about loving this company. But the paragraph 3 and 4, you just you put your needs and what you want from the company, and then the position that you're applying. Should that go up before the hook?
No. So the way I'm laying it out in this template is it's going to be the hook, your personal story. Then the second paragraph is the 3 reasons why you love this company. Then paragraph 3 is looking at the job description and picking three bullet points from the job description that you've done in a previous job and rewriting each bullet point in your own words in paragraph 3. And then in paragraph 4 is where you're going to tell a quick story about how you have done this work already at another place.
Oh, okay. That sounds nice.
Thank you for your question, Laura.
Mhm.
Any other questions before we look at the template? Okay, wonderful. All right, so this is the template I'll be sharing with you. Very straightforward and to the point. So you can see business letter format is already prepared for you. Your name, your address, your phone number, email address, LinkedIn profile, portfolio. The date has been written. Who you are addressing the letter to is kind of important. So do some research online to try to find the department director or manager online. And if you can't find them, you can just say the department name or company name and team. So for example, video team at Twitter, right? If you do find the person and it's their job title and the address of this organization. And then the opening salutation is the name of the person or team name. So another example would be team video at Twitter. That's just a fun way to do it. And then as we've talked about, the first sentence and paragraph has to be catchy and engaging to make the HR manager want to read the rest of your letter. So this is the personal story. The second paragraph is, the end of paragraph 1 is, this is why I'm excited to apply for name of position and name of company. The second paragraph needs to be why you love this company. So I love name of company, period. I love reason 1, I love reason 2, I even love reason 3. So 3 specific reasons. Then the third paragraph is where you restate 3 bullet points from the opportunity description in your own words. As I mentioned before, it will open with, based on my research, I can see that you're seeking someone who, insert bullet point 1, 2, and 3 in your own words, making sure to use different language and not the language that's in the job description. Then the fourth paragraph is you affirm for them that you are this person by talking about specific experiences that fulfill the needs you talked about above. You open with, I am this person. While working for, name of company, as a name of job, I specifically talk about what you did that fulfills one of the bullet points you talked about above. And then you repeat this 2 more times as this template will lay out for you. And then you close with, I would love to bring these, in the final paragraph, you close with, I would love to bring these experiences, skill set, and mindset to the blank position at blank company. Thank you so much for considering my application. Should you have any questions, please let me know. Sincerely, and then your name. Right? And then the more instructions are the things that we already talked about. 3 to 4 sentence paragraphs that get straight to the point. Do research on the company's mission, values, projects, and find ways to incorporate that information into the cover letter. A separate PDF, unless it is specifically instructed to do something different. And then try never to share your resume as a Google document, just because that's kind of bad form, I guess, or what I've observed to be poor form. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about this cover letter template?
I have an interview question. If you go to the employer and you interview for a job, you give them your resume and the cover letter at the same time, or you send the cover letter?
You would send the cover letter ahead of time, and you just bring a copy of an extra copy of your resume to the interview, just in case they would like to see one.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions before we look at a cover letter of mine with specific examples? Okay, wonderful. So this is a cover letter that I wrote in 2017 when I was applying for a job at Twitter. And the context is when I was working at Bay Area Video Coalition, this nonprofit, I was invited to come visit the community space at Twitter where they provide childcare and technical training and entertainment and just fun family events for people who live in the Tenderloin, and it's called the Neighbor Nest. And while I was there, I befriended the people who work there, and they invited me to come and volunteer there. So I spent some time volunteering there, learning about them, learning about the space, learning about the constituents they serve, the type of work that they do. And then when an opportunity to apply for a job showed up, they told me to apply. And so I took some of my experiences from this volunteer work that I did, and I incorporated it into this cover letter. So I want to just go through it a little bit with you right now. So contact information, business letter format, the date, the address, the salutation, dear Miss Laxamana, aka Prima, and Prima means cousin in Spanish. And I use this because both Leah and I were Peace Corps volunteers in different countries, in Spanish-speaking countries, and in the Spanish-speaking countries in South America, you can use the term cousin to relate to people that you know that you're friends with, even though they may not be your cousin. And so this is how we would refer to each other. So Prima. And so I open up with, from the first day I set foot in Neighbor Nest and put on the pizza hat, which is a hat, like a chef's hat that has a pizza on top of it. I felt so welcome and so safe. This is a testament to the work you, your work wife, Emily, Amy, Caroline, and all the Compass Family Service staff have done to make the Neighbor Nest a respite from the daily challenges and burdens your clients face. So personal story, straight off the bat, right? I'm excited to apply for the public policy coordinator role at Neighbor Nest. I know I have big shoes to fill, and I'm excited to give it my very all, right? I'm excited to apply for blank position at blank company. And now I start talking a little bit about my experience as it pertains to the role. As the unofficial mayor of Bayvac, I'm even more excited to potentially bring my experience, mindset, skills set, and joy to make the Neighbor Nest an even warmer place for the vulnerable community you all serve in the Tenderloin Mid-Market Corridor. Being a former resident of that neighborhood, I know the need is high. So I talk about how I used to live in this area, so I understand what it's like to be that type of constituent a little bit. And this is where I really want to highlight some of the experiences that I had that I want to give you examples of how to potentially incorporate in a love letter. Movie nights at the neighbor nest are one of the highlights of my month, not only because I get to be my silly and open self with parents and their children, but I get to interact and engage with such awesome people while doing it. I proudly don the pizza hat and serve pizza, popcorn, and cupcakes to families. I get so much energy from making silly faces with the children and connecting with the parents. Even spraying down the mats and picking popcorn out of the carpet is a joy. So you can see, like, I'm being very, very specific about details. You know, for example, when we're all done, we always spray down the mats that everybody was sitting on, and there's lots of popcorn on the floor that we always either vacuum or we try to pick up off the ground. And then I give another example. That night we carved pumpkins was my best pumpkin carving experience to date, mostly because I'm no good with a carving knife. And then I talk about another experience that I had there. I also was humbled to be invited to participate in the Community Technology Network's Digital Literacy Lab. I love being an ayudante in the classroom, so ayudante is like assistant, to make sure my students were getting the attention they needed. I ran into Marisol on the street the other day, which was one of my students that I worked with, and chatted about how she is using technology to find resources for herself and her family. I have proudly placed my certificate of appreciation on my refrigerator. So when we completed the program, the volunteers all got certificates of appreciation. And in the Peace Corps, in the South American countries that Leah and I served in, you know, these certificates were a really big deal. And so people would display them. So I was just sharing that I did that and kind of like reminding Leah that, hey, we're kind of the same. I also greatly enjoyed collaborating with the other twerps to bring these services to the community. And a twerp is what Twitter employees refer to themselves as. So while I was volunteering there, I learned this term, and now I'm incorporating this term in this cover letter, right, using insider knowledge. And I even referenced, I mean, who doesn't love Greg and Ben? So these are people that I worked with. I even got to participate in the Nest's first birthday. Seeing all the smiles of the family's faces made me fill up with emotion and pride. These little experiences are what make me feel like I'm doing some good in this world, and I would love the opportunity to continue doing so. Then, so that's basically saying why I love the Neighbor Nest in my own way, through my stories, through my memories, right? Really pulling at the heart and the emotional aspect of this work. So now I go into my next paragraph talking about stories of how I fulfill some of the requirements of the position. There are so many commonalities between what the Nest is currently doing and my previous work experiences that it's a little scary. The work that is being done at the Nest is very reminiscent of both my time as a Peace Corps volunteer and at Bay Area Video Coalition. All three locations are community technology centers aimed at skilling up local communities with both technical and interpersonal opportunities. As an education volunteer in the Dominican Republic, I taught basic computers courses similar to the Digital Literacy Lab to my community, in addition to coordinating and organizing youth empowerment groups to go out and make their communities better. Currently at BAVAC, I serve as a career counselor, guiding people to the next level in their career and lives. It is here where I do one-on-one career counseling and career workshops, empowering my clients to manage their careers and not be managed by it. It is my goal that everyone who I come into contact with feel as if BAVAC is a safe and inclusive space for all. We even sent Olga Aznabakayeva to the Treehouse Lab to continue her coding education, and after she completed one of our front-end web development boot camps. So Olga was a client that came to BAVAC that then we sent to the Neighbor Nest, who had their own learning technical training program. And so they know Olga, they know they got Olga through a recommendation referral from me. So really demonstrating to them that I'm very intimately familiar with the type of work they're already doing at the Neighbor Nest. Finally, as a result of my work at BAVAC, I created partnerships with so many amazing NGOs in San Francisco that I would love to connect the policy team to. And then I kind of just summarize for them in 5 bullet points, you know, some of the things that I can bring. Direct experience volunteering at the Nest, previous experience working in community-based technology centers, a master's degree in public policy with an emphasis on local and regional development, a fluency in Spanish, and strong facilitation and communication skills. So someone who's reading this didn't want to read all these other things, they can cut straight to the bullet points and see what I offer. Then I close with, it is these experiences, skill set, and mindset that I would love to bring to the neighbor nest. I would love the opportunity to discuss more in person, and I thank you in advance for considering my application. Sincerely, Aria. So a couple things I want to say about this cover letter is this cover letter took me like, I think 3 hours or 4 hours to write over a course of 2 or 3 days. It wasn't something that I just sat down and banged out. It literally, I had to outline it, think about the stories I wanted to mention, think about the experiences I wanted to highlight, and kind of create an outline. And then I started drafting language. And then I edited it, and I edited it, and I edited it again. I had other people proofread it for me, right? So it took me a while. And the reason why I wanted to take all this time and energy in writing a strong cover letter is that this Leah person was recommending me and referring me to this job. Because even though I know Leah and I know Leah's boss, Caroline, the people who worked above Caroline did not know me. So I wanted to make sure that not only was I writing a strong document that would intrigue them to want to talk to me, I also wanted to make sure that the people who were referring me, Leah, Emily, and Caroline, are also looking really good. Let's see, we have a question in the chat. Oh, okay. Thank you, Kathleen, for letting me know about Cameron. I appreciate that. No worries. These things happen, right? But thank you for letting me know. Appreciate that. So it's really important if someone's like referring and recommending you for a job to still do your very best and write strong cover letters and resumes so that the person who's referring you and recommending you looks really good, no matter what the outcome. And so for me, I did this and I had an interview with Leah, and then I had an interview with Caroline, and then I had an interview with Caroline's boss. And then after that, I had an interview with the like super head boss of the entire policy team at Twitter. And this person, just to give you some context, worked as the Deputy Secretary of the Department of Transportation for President Obama. So someone who's like, I guess, done a lot of good work or is special or something. He was in a high position. And when we got on this video call with him, the first thing he said to me was, Aria, I have to tell you, I have been looking at resumes and cover letters for a very long time. And this cover letter that you wrote is the best cover letter I have ever seen. So I'm telling you this to remind you that when you put the time and energy into something, it is always worth it. All effort is honored and all effort is important. It is never wasted. Okay. And I would say that this for me was probably the most fun cover letter I've ever written. And I always kind of come back to this when I'm trying to find energy to sit down and write a cover letter, when I'm like, man, cover letters and resumes are so dumb and so archaic, and yet we still do it. Does anybody have any questions about the specific examples or the way I've laid out this cover letter of mine from March of 2017? Wonderful. And just by a thumbs up, does everybody kind of get a sense of the types of examples and how specific you want to be with the things you're talking about in a cover letter? Awesome. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Marissa. Thank you, Mary Chris, Kathleen, Theo. Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you, Laura. This is like how I want you to write your cover letters, as specific and clear as possible. Because clearly, I wrote this like a cover letter, excuse me, I wrote this like a love letter And the head of international policy at Twitter was like in love with me because of this letter, just to begin with, before we even had a conversation. So it's powerful.